This is drivetrain maintenance for the 180R. In order to remove the drivetrain, first of all, push up the back cap. If it's tight, just give it a small wiggle from side to side. As you pull it backwards, the drivetrain will slide out of the body. Just want to check inside, make sure it's clean inside. If you need to, you can run a fluffy stick down the inside to make sure there's no dirt or debris inside there. Good clean. Make sure that's nice and clean and place that to one side. Now we're going to look at the drivetrain itself. For basic maintenance, all we really need to look at is the can and the bolt. Unscrew the brass part or the gold part from the red part. Note that it's not excessively tight. There's no need to tighten this back on or to use the flats in order to tighten it. Just screw it until it stops and it'll stay in position there. Remove the gold piece. You can place this to one side for now. Then to push out the bolt, just push from the top. The bolt will pop out. Microfiber. Give both of the parts good clean. You want to pay particular attention to the number 17 O-ring inside the can here. This is the O-ring that picks up the most dirt and debris. If the paint has got lint or fluff on the paint, you'll see this build up on this O-ring here. As you can see, this comes in contact with the bolt and can cause leaks from around this area. So we want to get just the corner of a microfiber and just work your way around that number 17 inside there. Just make sure all the debris, dirt and fluff, old paint and old grease is removed from there. Also put that into the back and give it a clean out from the back. Once everything is nice and clean, go ahead and rebuild these two parts. So you want small, less than pea-sized amount of grease on here, and then you just want to work this onto the number 17 on the inside and work your way around, making sure that number 17 is nice greased. And take a little bit more grease and we can place that onto the inside of the can. Turn attention to the bolt. You want to just wet the rear O-ring here, that's 14 by 2 O-ring, and then anything that's left on your fingers you can just work that around and over the body of the bolt and just around the inside of the bolt as well. And then slide that back into the can. Make sure that's moving nice and freely. And that should be enough for your basic maintenance for the bolt and can. Coming back to the actual drivetrain, we'll then just wipe off any excess grease and debris from here. We can re-grease these two number 13 O-rings, and again we're just using a small amount of grease on those two O-rings, those two number 13s. This third number 13 here is just a bumper, so we don't actually need any grease on that. Once that's cleaned up and greased, we can slide the can back on. Again, just screw it in until it stops. That's the basic maintenance. You can do this every time you play, or maybe every 10,000 rounds should be more than enough. If you, however, you want to go into a bit more detailed servicing of the complete drivetrain, then you need to remove the can and bolt, and we've just done that, so we can place that to one side. Don't need to redo that just yet. Then we need to separate the bolt guide, the joiner and the switch body. You just grab the grey bit and the red bit and just unscrew them, and see they'll start to come apart. Have the spool spring and the spring guide come out there. If these two parts stay together, then that's fine. Don't really need to separate those. unless you really want to. There's no benefit from separating these two pieces, but we can just give them a clean, ready for rebuilding afterwards. We will give the spool quick clean. Again, the microfiber, just paying attention to the O-rings. And then inside here we have the switch inside the switch body. You can just put something inside there, inside the internal groove in there, and just lift the switch out of the switch body. Again, you can take your microfiber, give these a good clean, wiping off the old grease, ready to apply fresh new coat of grease, and same inside there. This is all you'd need to take apart for any regular maintenance or extended maintenance. As I said, just doing the bolt and the can is enough for most instances. Maybe every 50,000, 70,000 shots you want to dismantle the rest of the parts just to give those a quick once over and a clean out too. So once we've taken everything apart and cleaned it, small amount of grease back inside the switch body. I'm going to put some grease on the two O-rings on the outside, switch itself. Any excess we can just work that around the inside, slide that back into the switch body. Then have the spool, got the two seals at the rear that go inside the switch. This seal here is actually a poppet seal, it's a face seal, so it doesn't actually slide in and out of anything, it just butts up against a surface. So this doesn't need any grease on. I actually recommend not to grease that seal in the middle. Doesn't matter if you get grease on it, obviously grease will blow past it and it is fine, but you don't need to grease it during assembly or reassembly. And the little part at the end of the spool will need some grease on, because that comes through here, and inside here there is a small O-ring. So before we reassemble these parts, we're going to put some grease around that 6 by 1.5 O-ring inside there. So just on the end of a hex key, just work it around the inside of that pocket. Now we can start to put these bits back together. Very important, you have the spring and the spring guide in the back of the spool here. They sit inside the switch, and then you just push these together, and you want to screw this assembly back together, and you want to tighten this not excessively, but you just want to tighten it until you have metal here and metal to metal here, both ends of the joiner, so that the shoulder of the joiner is touching the shoulder of the switch body, and the shoulder of the bolt guide is touching the shoulder of the joiner at this end. Because we wiped the grease off the bolt guide, we'll just go back and re-grease that again. So just a small amount of grease on both of those number 13s there, and reattach the can. Just screw that in until it's just touching bolt guide. Then just very light coat of grease just to help with assembly. These don't do anything actually in operation. The grease you're putting on these O-rings here is literally just to help assemble this drivetrain back into the body. We've already cleaned the inside of the body, so we can just go ahead, obviously lift up the back cap before you slide it in, slide it all the way in, and pop the back cap down. And that is the drivetrain basic and advanced maintenance on a 180R.